Welcome everyone to a new episode of Yes Gort on Azure. Today we're going to talk about the Power BI tenant settings. If you as an organization use Power BI, it's absolutely vital that you check those settings every once in a while. So in this movie we're going to talk through all the options, all the settings that are available as of today, as of 2022. And we're going to see especially which settings are really important to check. Which may pose a risk to your security and which ones you definitely want to check out. Alright, so the tenant settings, how to get there. You get there by clicking settings and then go to the admin portal, and it's the first one that you will see up here. So tenant settings, I'm going to talk through each one of them and give you my opinion on what I would do if it were my tenant. What you see in this demo is this is actually a demo tenant. It's not a real one, and what is set up now doesn't necessarily reflect how I look at it. So I'll just go through every one of them and give you my opinion. Don't take my opinion as something you should do or as the opinion of Rubicon or Microsoft. It's just how I look at it. You are responsible for your own decisions, but I'm just going to give you my view on those settings and what I would probably do. What you'll see here are all the default settings, so that can be interesting as well to check out. So let's go through them. First, publish get help information. If you enable this, you can actually give users a couple of URLs to some internal documentation. So for example, if you can send them through a site where they can find some additional training. Maybe you have an onboarding training for your users where they can find out how to get started with Power BI, but also some of the rules that you have for using Power BI in your organization. Maybe there's a discussion forum, a team site, or a Yammer site where you can also discuss what kind of stuff you do with Power BI and maybe share some reports or tips and tricks. I think this is really helpful for your end users, and I would definitely recommend that you turn this on for your organization. Receive email notifications for service outages or incidents. So maybe, let's say if there is something with the Power BI service and maybe it's less available than normally, would you want to be notified? I think you definitely should turn this on and specify a security group for Power BI administrators that are in your organization and that monitor the service. Allow users to try Power BI paid features. I would actually turn this off because I think if you want to give people a pro license or a premium per user license, I would do this consciously. I would not recommend people to be able to try it out for 60 days and maybe create a lot of premium per user content, which after the 60 days they cannot access anymore. Because let's say, take for example, if you don't want to use Power BI premium per user, and maybe you want to use a premium capacity, you do not want people to create content that they're not going to be able to access later on anymore. Show a custom message before publishing reports. This is a message that you get when you publish a report to the service. Normally it just says we published it to this workspace, and you can click the link to go there. Maybe you can customize that message. And for example, say, so if there's privacy sensitive data in there, please don't publish it to Power BI, or some other message that you might want to give your users could be very useful. Create workspaces. So who can create workspaces? This is really the question, how much freedom you want to give your end users. If you set this for everyone in your organization, you're going to end up with a lot of workspaces and really stimulate self-service BI. But if you're an organization with very sensitive data and is under the strictest of laws, I would not give this to everyone, and just for certain use cases, maybe only administrators can create workspaces. But it's really dependent on what your vision is for self-service BI, if you just want to let that go all out, or if you want to have a certain form of control and know which users go to which workspaces. Use datasets across workspaces. I would definitely turn this on because it means you can create several reports based on one dataset. Even if it is in another dataset, can be really helpful. It will reduce duplication of effort when two people create basically the same data model. What I also sometimes do is create a self-service workspace and a managed workspace. So maybe an IT department creates the one version of the true official data set, but self-service users can create their own report on it. So I would like to separate that in several workspaces, and then it's very handy to be able to go through the other workspace and base a report on a data set that's located there. Block scheduled upgrade of empty workspaces. So what this is, basically if you're going to upgrade all of your classic workspaces to the new workspaces, which you really should do, by the way, empty workspaces from the original version, the classical workspaces, will be deleted unless you turn this on. If a workspace is empty and it's a classical workspace, I personally don't see a reason to keep it, but you might have your reasons. So I don't really know what to say for this. I don't really think it's needed to block it, but you could do that if you would like that. Block notification for scheduled workspace upgrades. Well, the question is, do you want the people who created those classical workspaces to be notified that their workspace was upgraded to a new version? I think, well, why not? Why would you not give them that information? You could also say they don't have to worry about it, but if they're an admin of that workspace, the administration of a workspace is quite different in the new workspace experience. So in that situation, I would probably notify them so that they know it's a different experience now. Information protection. Okay, so this is really a big one. Do you want people to be able to label Power BI reports or datasets with sensitivity labels, like maybe this is highly confidential, or this is really highly confidential, or it's not? You have to go to the Microsoft Purview compliance portal to create sensitivity labels. And what you can do is, for example, say that data in this report before it's exported needs to be maybe encrypted, but you do need a license, a certain Purview license for it, and there are some costs linked to it. But if you would like to use it in Power BI, you can enable it, but you need to also go to the Microsoft Purview compliance portal to get it to work. So apply sensitivity labels from data sources to their data in Power BI. Azure SQL, Azure Synapse, and Excel support these sensitivity labels as well. And if you read data from it, do you want that label to be automatically applied to your Power BI reports? You can enable that, so you don't have to set it again yourself. Automatically apply sensitivity label to downstream content. What this means is, if you create a new report based on a previous Power BI report or data set, do you automatically want to take all these sensitivity labels and apply them to the new content as well? I think if you're going to use it, I would definitely turn this on. Now, all the example, what you see here, this is just a demo tenant, and I haven't set it to what I would do, so don't pay attention if it's now disabled or enabled. Pay attention to what I say. Allow workspace admins to override automatically applied sensitivity labels. So do you want a workspace admin to say, well, no, even though this report is based on a very sensitive data set, I don't want my report based on that to have that same sensitivity label. Would you like to do that? Really depends on how you see your data governance structure. Who is going to decide what is sensitive and what is not? So I think you really should focus on that. Are there going to be data stewards, or is it like the information owner? So it depends a little bit on your organization of your data governance. But I would say that the workspace admin typically, normally is very aware of the data that's in there. So in that case, if it's like the owner of the content itself, I would probably enable it. Restrict content with protected labels from being shared via link with everyone in your organization. What this kind of does is that when you share data, you share a report, you can click share with everyone in your organization, and this setting basically kills that option. So you have to really specify who you want to share it with. Do I think? Yeah, I think it's a good idea unless you really want to share sensitive data with everyone in your organization. So that really depends on the situation. So here are some interesting settings. Allow Azure Active Directory guest users to access Power BI. Yeah, I will probably disable that unless you have a third party that's going to manage your Power BI. I normally wouldn't want people from other companies to have access to my Power BI. It's really a security risk. So invite external users to your organization, which is basically the same thing, same idea. I don't want to invite people from other organizations to my tenant normally, so I would disable it. So would I also allow the guest users to edit and manage content in my Power BI tenant? No, also probably not. I probably would do it myself. So I would turn that all off unless you have a real good case why you want to do some external sharing. And if you want to do external sharing, maybe you want to do it with Power BI embedded. I wouldn't just allow them into my Power BI tenant by themselves. So if you're going to have Active Directory guests, do you want them to see their names pop up when you share it with someone? For example, you share it with Mark. If you type in the M and the A, do you want to see Mark, who is an external guest user or not? I think if you're going to have guest users, I would like to know, so I would probably enable it, but I wouldn't have guest users in the first place. But if you want to have them, then I think this auto suggest is actually very helpful, because you could then think, do I even want to share data with a person, and why is he in my tenant? Publish to web, yeah, definitely turn that off. That's not such a great idea. This basically publishes a report directly to the internet without any access control, without any authentication. Yeah, definitely a security risk. That's the first one you want to turn off. Copy and paste visuals. Can you copy and paste them into Excel or Word? Some people say, yeah, that's a security risk, but I would say to that, everyone can make a print screen and email it anyway. So in this case, I don't really see a reason why you want to disable it. This is the right thing to do here, I think, is to have an onboarding course for everyone that's going to use Power BI, that they know what your compliancy rules are, how you want to be able to deal with Power BI, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, what kind of data you may share and how you may share it. I think that's more a matter of training than that you can completely force it via the tenant settings. So export to Excel, export to CSV. I don't see a problem with that per se. Download reports. So can you upload a Power BI report and download it back? I would definitely turn that on, so you can still edit your report if in case you lost it. Allow live connections. Definitely want to turn this on, because it means that you can connect reports to Power BI datasets or analysis services models. And you definitely don't want to have a model for each report. So you would end up with a lot of data models. It's best to have one data model and connect a lot of reports on that. So definitely turn this on. Export reports as PowerPoint or PDF. I think the same as the previous export functionality. I would turn that on. Same with HTML, Word, XML. Don't really see a problem with that. So export reports as image files. You can use an API to render report as an image. But if you have sensitivity label applied and the protection settings such as encryptions won't be applied. So yeah, I would turn it on, but maybe only do it for a subset of people who do it for a very specific reason, because I don't see that a lot of people are going to use the API to render reports as images. Maybe only a small subset of users. So I would actually turn it on and then use a specific security group for that. Print dashboards and reports. Yeah, I think I would turn it on because I think it's very normal that you want to print a report. In this case, if it is sensitive data, I think it is more a matter of making people aware of your rules, how to handle sensitive data, and that they shouldn't just print it and give out those prints to everyone. But they can always still make a screenshot, so you cannot really prevent data leaking that way. And printing is a very normal functionality, and it would be frustrating if a lot of people cannot use it. So I would normally turn it on. Certification, I would definitely turn this on, but for only specific security groups. What you can do with certification is, for example, indicate that a certain report or data set is the one version of the truth, is officially certified by the organization that it is the right data, and it's a good way to separate self-service BI from managed BI. Email subscriptions, I would turn it on so people can get a notification when a report changes. Featured content, do you allow people to share their report to the Power BI home? Yeah, I don't see really a problem with that one. I would probably enable it. Allow connections to featured tables. Yeah, so you can set a table as a featured table, and then people can use it in Excel. But I would do this only for specific security groups, because I think it would get really messy if everyone is going to make all the tables a featured table. I would only do this for maybe super users who really know their data and will not share sensitive data with that. Allow shareable links to grant access to everyone in your organization. This basically gives you the possibility to share a report with everyone in your organization. Do you want that to be disabled or not? I don't think you should disable it, but it really depends on how you want people to share their data. So I don't see it happening a lot that reports are shared to the entire organization, but you can disable it if you like here. Enable Teams integration in a Power BI service. So do you allow people to use Power BI features in Teams, for example, like chats or the Power BI app for Teams? I think it's a real nice add-on to Power BI, so I would definitely turn that on. So do you want to install the Power BI app for Microsoft Teams automatically? I also don't see a problem with that one. Enable Power BI add-in for PowerPoint. Do you want people to be able to show Power BI content into PowerPoint dynamically or not? I don't really see a problem with that one. Directv connections to Power BI datasets. This is really interesting one. I think it's a very cool feature in one way, because you're allowing people to connect to a Power BI dataset and then continue to build on that, which previously was not possible. But this also makes possible that, for example, you have a certified dataset and it's the one version of the truth, and people are then able to still link an Excel file to that and continue to build on that dataset. I would actually prefer to turn it off, because I think if people really want that extra Excel file in the dataset, they should go to the dataset owner and request that change. So I think you're going to create less of a mess and a lot different data models with actually the same data. So I think it's actually going to create a more of a spaghetti kind of BI, where you have all kinds of data sets with the same information. So I would actually turn it off, but I can also understand that your self-service BI users would like to use it. So it definitely depends on how much freedom you want to give them. External sharing, and I would turn it off, but I was a bit surprised because I think if you're going to disable external guest users, I'm not quite sure what this setting actually does. But to me, it sounds like security risk to me, so I would prefer to turn it off. And you'll find that if you go through the tenant settings, that sometimes things are not very explained very well. Sometimes they can be confusing. So do we want to make promoted content discoverable? I don't have a problem with that. So you can have promoted content. You want people to be able to find it. The big question here is, do you want people to find content that they're not already allowed to see? So that really depends on how sure you are that the people you authorize to see certain workspaces are the only people who should see it, or that people should be able to discover content that they do not yet have access to it, and that they can request access to it. Publish content packs and apps to the entire organization. Do you want people to be able to do that? Do you want people to create template content pack and apps? Do you want to be able to do that? I don't know what you should do there. I think it really depends on how much freedom you want to give your end users in this case. Push apps to end users. So I would actually turn it on so that people don't have to install your apps and templates. I think in this case, this will install it for them automatically. And I think that is the best choice. Allow XML endpoints and analyze in Excel with on-premises datasets. I found the term on-premises datasets a bit confusing, because what I figured out from this setting is that it is not about Power BI report server, but it is just about Power BI datasets in the service. And this will allow to use Analyze in Excel and to connect through it through an XML endpoint, which is really important if you use Premium and if you want to deploy analysis services models to Power BI directly, or Power BI models, deploy them automatically. Do you want people to use the REST API and use DAX expressions with it? I would only do that for a subset because I don't see everyone just using that. ArcGIS, really important. If you have this enabled, people can use the ArcGIS maps, which sends data to Esri, which is outside of your Power BI tenant geographic region. A compliance boundary, which really raises the question if you should do that or not. It really depends on how sensitive your data is, where the data may be stored, and if Esri is a trusted party for you. Global search, I don't see a problem with that one. Azure Search External Search Index, but I couldn't find if that is outside of your geographic region. I think it is not, but I'm not quite sure. So depends on if you trust Azure Search, External Search, or not. Azure Map Visual, also like ArcGIS, really important to turn this off, because Azure Services use Azure Services outside of your geographic region, your compliance boundary, but it also shares data with TomTom, and I'm not sure if you trust that party. So really review this setting. Same for the Map Visual. It also goes outside of your compliance boundary, and I'm really concerned with that one. Some organizations I know have, for example, laws that state that it may only be stored in the European Union, so this setting would definitely be a problem for them. Integration with Sharepoint and Microsoft List. I don't see a problem with that one. You can use Sharepoint List as a source and publish them back. Then some stuff for a single sign-on. Do you want single sign-on to sources behind the gateway, for example? Which I understand this correctly. If you have this turned off, that users will go through sources in a direct query scenario with the account that is used in the gateway, and if you use this, then the user from the Power BI service goes through it. But I haven't actually played with this one yet, so I'm not 100% sure on that one. If you know better, please leave it down in the comments, but this is how I understood it. Power BI visuals, do you allow visuals created with the Power BI SDK and imported from app source or from a file? I will probably turn it off. It really depends on how sensitive your data settings are, of course. But external companies can create custom visuals, and I would want to know which one to trust before I would enable it. I would actually prefer to just put this on disabled. Also, certified visuals. Certified visuals are certified by Microsoft and reviewed by Microsoft if they are safe, but they can still be from external parties, and I'm not sure if you want to share your data with an external party which you don't know and you don't have a contract with. So I will probably disable that one as well, and then add your trusted visuals to the organizational visuals section over here. Do you want to allow people to use R and Python scripts and create them in your Power BI reports? Create audit logs for internal activity auditing compliance. In this case, it actually goes through the Office 365 admin portal, and you can see, for example, who opened what report. I think you have to do it in that admin portal and not here, so I'm going to dismiss this one. Do we allow content creators to see usage metrics? I think that's interesting, and I should probably put it on enabled, because I think if someone creates a report and it's not widely used, you should know it. But also the other way around, if it's very successful, you want to see that it is being used a lot. But do you want to see it with a name and email address or not? You can actually set that on or not. Depends on how private you want that to be. Do you allow people to see what employee opened your report or not? Do we allow separate Azure Log Analytics connections for Workspace administrators? It really depends on your Workspace administrators. I think if they're Azure savvy, you could potentially do it. They can link it with Log Analytics, and then all the analysis services events on those models are being sent to that log. But it really depends on what kind of people are your Workspace administrators. In my experience, they are not people who would go to Log Analytics, so I would probably keep it on disabled. Web content. Do you allow web content on Power BI dashboards? Could be a security risk. It says here, so I would probably put it on disabled. Developer settings. Do you want people to be able to embed content in web applications? I would put that only for security groups, because if someone is going to use Power BI Embedded, I want to know who that is and why they're doing it, because it is exposing reports externally. So I would definitely only keep it to a specific security group if you even know that they're going to do it. Otherwise, you would just put it on disabled and wait until someone comes to you and has a really valid business case to do this. Allow service principals to use Power BI APIs. I would turn it on for the security group which contains that service principal. So I would definitely use a service principal to deploy Power BI reports and dashboards and models. And I would use a service principal to monitor Power BI, to read the admin log, and to load it to a data mart, for example. But I would only do it with a service principal that is of my choosing, and not just do this for the entire organization. I wouldn't want anyone to be able to do that, or everyone to be able to do that, and only specific security group. Create profiles is interesting if you use embedded. So if you use Power BI embedded, I would probably turn it on, otherwise not. Allow service principals to use read-only admin APIs. I would turn it on for the service principal that's going to monitor your Power BI usage. And if you want to enhance those admin APIs with more metadata, I haven't tried these ones yet. What I would suggest is see what, if you turn this off, what kind of response you get, and if you turn it on, see what the difference is. But I don't really see a problem with it, but I could be wrong in that. So if you really have any experience with these two settings, let me know. Create and use data flows really depends on how much freedom you want to give your end users to use self-service BI. I think if self-service BI content creators are going to create their own data flows and their own data marts, you're going to have an entire data platform in Power BI without you knowing what kind of data they're putting there, if it's sensitive data or not. I would be a little bit careful with that and not just enable everyone, but I would first start with certain super users who are onboarded, who are up to date with how Power BI works, how your organization works with data, what are the rules, how's the governance, and if that is all in place, you can try and with a pilot start this, but I wouldn't just turn it on for everyone in one go. Publish template apps to clients outside of the organization. I would turn that off because you can create reports then and share them externally. Install template apps created outside the organization. Well, do you trust those template apps? If you don't trust it, you can put it on disabled. But I think normally it's quite normal to have this enabled. But the other one, install template apps not listed in App Source, so they could be from everywhere, I would turn that off. So review questions, I don't have a problem with that. This allows people to use the Q&A, and you have Q&A synonyms so that the data model knows that if you say, for example, client also means customer. So you can share those kind of synonyms with people in your organization. I don't see a problem with that one. Do you only want the dataset owner to publish updates? Could be interesting. Private link and block public internet access. You can do that and put Power BI so that you can only access it via private link. So it's further secured. Really depends on your security needs. But from what I understood is that you can then also don't have the option to create reports on other data models that are already in powerbi.com itself. So I would only do it if it really is something that your security compliance team says that you need to do it. Otherwise, it's just making it more difficult. But that's something you would have to talk to with your security team. But it is possible, and then if after you set up the private link, you have to block public internet access. Don't do it the other way around, because you can lose your old tenant if you're not careful with this. So that's actually quite a heavy setting. Create and use metrics. And this is a funny one. I cannot find what this means. Because there's already a setting that talks about look at usage metrics. But I'm not quite sure what this one is. So if you know, please let me know, because I couldn't find any documentation on this setting, and I haven't tried disabling it, so I'm a bit curious to what this actually does. Do you want Power BI to optimize your experience so they give slight variations in content or layout so they can see how you react to it? I don't have a problem with it, but you could turn it off if you don't like the idea. Another important one, allow your Microsoft 365 services to process or store Power BI data outside of your geographic area. Also, if you have a really strong compliancy rule that your data must only be stored in a certain region, definitely keep this disabled. Well, insights, I don't see a problem with that. Create data marts, also an interesting one. They can create full-fledged SQL data marts in your workspace. Do you want to give them the ability to do that or not? Well, it can be interesting. You can try it out. I don't really see a problem with it, but it's also another way to create more solutions in the cloud. I think it's an interesting one, and I don't really have an opinion on this one yet. Quick measure suggestions. This is interesting. I would normally say, okay, of course, allow it. Why not? Why wouldn't you have quick measure suggestions? But this one really triggered me. Quick measure suggestions are currently processed in the United States. And I have some organizations that only want their data to be in Europe. So if that's the case, disable it, and I would have to disable both in that sense. Alright, those were the tenant settings. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments or email me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time.